Guys, if you ask me, this video has been long overdue, but I've been finishing up some books and stuff. But now I am ready to rank all the Wings of Fire books that I've read from worst to best on a tier list. So that is Arc 1, the first book in Arc 2, and Legends Darkstalker. So yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, the first book on the list is the first Wings of Fire book of all time, The Dragonette Prophecy. Honestly, I feel like this book gets slept on a bit just because there's not as much action as the other books. I do feel like the story is pretty solid. I get how it can get a little slow at times and boring, but when they get to the Skywing Arena, it's actually really entertaining. Yeah, and I do think it's important for like that whole setup of how the Dragonettes were in the cave for years and stuff. I get that's important because it like shows the bond where like the Dragonettes were with each other by birth and all of that, but I do feel like it dragged on a little bit too much, and if it didn't take so long, we could have had more time in the Sky Kingdom, which I thought was a lot more entertaining. Onto the characters though, and it's kind of mixed. I feel like the Guardians are just like comically mean for like basically no reason. And I do love the Dragonettes in later books, but they don't have basically any development in this first book. And yo, chill out for a second. She'll probably get better in the later books that I haven't read yet. But honestly, I feel like people glaze Scarlet, at least for this book's standards. Like, she's kind of just a basic evil queen. Like, I don't feel like there's anything too memorable about her, not gonna lie. Chill, okay? I know this is a controversial opinion, but I get it. Every story needs a villain, and she fills the role pretty well, I guess. But I think the best part about this book is the setup for later stories. It showcases the world very well for a first book, and like just the presentation of the war is pretty well handled. Yeah, you can really feel the presence of the war without seeing or being in any battles. Like, for example, the Skywing prisoners, like you can just like see like, oh yeah, they're from different tribes in the war, and like that whole battle scene of like the old battle, you can just feel the presence of the war even though you're not in it. And I feel like Wings of Fire is really good at that. Like, they don't have to directly show it without like showing the readers that it's there. So while I do think the characters are a mixed bag, I think the story is decent, and the presentation of the world and the setup for later books is very good in my opinion. So that's why I'm putting the Dragonette Prophecy in B+. I feel like it's really slept on. Alright, next up is The Lost Heir, and I have mixed feelings on this book. Yeah, the setting is kind of cool, how it's underwater, but I just feel like the story is forgettable, honestly. I think the only part of the story I like is the end with like the mystery plot, like who keeps killing all the eggs. I think that's the only part of the very long book, or at least it feels very long, story that I like. Yeah, that orca statue scene was very well written, and it honestly gave me goosebumps. Like, I was scared of that statue, bro. And yeah, I guess the Summer Palace bombing was a good conclusion to the story and pretty exciting. But apart from that, the story just feels filler. Like, nothing important or interesting happens for like 90% of the book. Like, think about it. What was the point of this book's story? Like, I don't know, it kind of just feels more like a bridge book than like actually like something important to the main story of the arc. It just feels like Tsunami side quests, honestly. Speaking of Tsunami, yo, hear me out. Tsunami is my least favorite Dragonette of Destiny. Sure, she gets a little bit more character development about not being a bossy brat, and yeah, sure, at the end of the book she's better, and then after that in the next book she's just back to being normal Tsunami. and the book after that, and the book after that. So, if something only happens for one book, is it really character development? I don't know. Yeah, but apart from Tsunami, none of the other characters were pretty memorable, except for Blister's first appearance. She's pretty wicked in this book, but she only shows up for a sec. So, yeah, guys, I just feel like this book was kind of underwhelming. It did not carry over the hype from the last book. And I just kind of felt like it's not too important to the main story. Alright guys, next is The Hidden Kingdom, the third book in the first series. And honestly, if I'm being real with you guys, this is the book that got me like really invested into Wings of Fire. Like really. The story is just so much better than The Lost Heir. Like the mystery with the Nightwings and all that. Yeah, but like you go to the Ice Kingdom and like uncovering the secrets with like the tunnels and all of that, and like the monster in the forest, it's all just like very entertaining, and the pacing never slows down. Like it's always perfect pacing. There's not like a down period in the book. And I would say it's probably one of the best stories in Wings of Fire. The characters are good. I kind of love the lazy Rainwings and all of that. And Glory is probably the best protagonist so far in the series. But yeah, this story is action-packed, always at a good pace. The characters are good. I do think it's slightly overrated. Like, people be saying this is one of the best in all of Wings of Fire. And although I think it's quite good, I don't think it's near that. But nevertheless, a very enjoyable read. Alright guys, up next we got The Dark Secret. Low-key, this is definitely not one of the best Wings of Fire books in the series, but I do think it's a little underrated. Yeah, the story is probably the worst part about this book, because nothing happens except for the last like 2 chapters of the book that are actually important to the arc's story, but like nothing happens. He just be chilling on the Nightwing Island. Like, yeah, the last 2 chapters where like the Rainwings raid the island is pretty enjoyable, not gonna lie. But the whole book does not make up for like a few pages of content. But alas, the most important thing about this story is the secret, because it's called The Dark Secret. And how is that secret? I'd say the biggest plot twist of this book is that the prophecy's made up. And I kind of ruined it, because I watched this like animated Wings of Fire fan trailer, and it literally showed Moro Seer writing the prophecy. So I just took it as a given, and then when the reveal happened, I was like, wait, am I supposed to be surprised by this? I wasn't, so for me, there were no big reveals, not gonna lie. But, I mean, hey, the characters are decent. I think Starflight is one of the better protagonists, and his arc of, like, learning to be brave and all that is pretty good. Fate Speaker's good, Moro Seer's good. It's pretty enjoyable with the characters. But it just isn't that good of a book. Like, nothing happens. I guess it's another bridge book, just like The Lost Heir. But I'm sorry, those books aren't ranking high on this list because we're in it for the juice, you know? Yeah, I still do believe that this is an underrated book and still got some good parts in it, but alas, a few parts can't make up for a whole book. Alright guys, on to the last in the first series, The Brightest Night. And personally, my favorite book of the first series. This book is just action-packed to the brim. But yeah, this is probably the best story in Wings of Fire, in my opinion. Because, like, oh my god, all the scenes are just so memorable. From, like, the final, like, duel, the Scorpion Den, and just being introduced to Thorn and the Outlaws. This story is very enjoyable and action-packed. I feel like they had to wrap up a little too much in one book with all of that content, but I feel like they did it pretty well. And on to the characters, there's nothing too special. I do feel like it was a good idea to separate Sunny from the Dragonettes for a majority of the book to really give her a chance for her character to shine. And low-key, I kind of feel for Smolder, bro. Overall, this book is just super entertaining, really good end to the first arc. If there was one big complaint, I do agree with the majority of people that it's kind of weird how all the 3 Sandwing sisters were just okay with meeting at Burn Stronghold. Like, surely at least one of them would be like, yeah, this is probably a bad idea. But again, overall, this is a great book and a great end to the first series. Okay, guys, on to Moon Rising. I just finished this book, so I'm planning to make a full separate video just for this, so I'll just go over it very quickly. They honestly cooked with the story. I'm so surprised that I enjoyed a book about school so much. Like, how do I get home from school and be like, I am so excited to read about a book of school? Only the best can pull that off, I tell you. But yeah, the whole murder mystery plot was also quite interesting, and I think they handled it better than The Lost Heir. And on to the characters. Oh my god, the characters. Chef's Kiss. Cause Moon can, like, read minds, it really fleshes out the characters that much better. Like, for example, if Moon couldn't read Winter's mind, I just would have thought he was a comically mean character and never give him a chance. But since, like, the readers know what he's actually thinking, I actually kind of enjoy Winter as a character. Yeah, not gonna lie, the characters are probably the best part of this book and the best characters out of any book in the series. And for that, this is probably my favorite Wings of Fire book of all time. Alright guys, on to the one you've all been waiting for, Legends Darkstalker. This book used to be my favorite before Moon Rising. That's how good it is. This book really leans into the darker side of Wings of Fire, and I am all for that. The Fall of Darkstalker is both really well written and a tragedy. And honestly, I could talk about this book for another 5 minutes, but I don't want to make this video too long. The characters I found were also really good. Out of the trio, Fathom's definitely my favorite, but I also really love Darkstalker. The reason Darkstalker is the best villain in the series, in my opinion, is because he's not like a traditional villain. He doesn't know what he's doing is evil. He thinks what he's doing is for the better. Along with that, he's got an actual, like, likable, charismatic personality, and honestly, it's just a really great introduction for Darkstalker into the series. I love Legends Darkstalker, not gonna lie. Along with that too, he has mastered the art of making a presence of the war while not showing any battles, and I think she does it even better than the Dragonette Prophecy. Overall, this is just a really enjoyable read, really interesting, and just a really good book. Though I still feel like it's been dethroned by Moon Rising for the sole purpose of how good the characters are in Moon Rising. Thankfully, none of the books got into the tier of utter dog shite, and even my lowest ranked book, The Lost Heir, is still a pretty enjoyable read. Honestly, all Wings of Fire books are just really that good. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching. But if you had to rank these books, how would you do it?